Hello and welcome to another Abusecartoons live stream. Are we working? Yes. Okay. Sorry, I didn't have the microphone plugged in, so I was worried it was going to be totally silent when I switched over here. But it seems to be okay. So, hello again. Another week, and it's a super hot week. So, yeah, the usual beautiful scenery behind me is just going to be curtains because it's so hot. The air conditioning can't actually keep up with that window if it's open and coming in like that. So this will just be temporary. But thank you for joining me, and let's get at it. So yeah, extremes. I just thought of it before I started. Before I turn this on, that we could be talking about extremes of things, extremes of opinions, and kind of what the world, or at least the internet of the world, is asking of us most recently. If you don't have an extreme opinion, if you're not trying to pander to an extreme opinion, you're generally getting ignored. I think a lot of things that I do, and a lot of, just kind of warming up here, a lot of things that I do and a lot of recent projects haven't had a very extreme point of view, or haven't had a lot of extreme content to one side or the other, and that just lets people ignore things. I think that's a real common situation, and it's just because we've kind of surrendered to this, I don't know, tabloid style, this, gossip magazine tabloid style of information and how we get our information. So not only, people have just kind of figured out how to get attention, and the way to get attention is to pander to a specific viewpoint and be totally extreme about it, and that will get you views and clicks and everything, but it will not, it could be self-sabotaging ultimately, because I think you're going to get yourself in trouble, because if you're ever found out as not having that extreme opinion, then I think you get called on it. And, I think we've seen that already happening, people kind of shifting, and yeah, just the odd idea that, people have to identify. Well, what do you identify as? Are you a socialist? Are you, and it's just, it's really a ridiculous situation. And we've just allowed culture pretty much, because, our information and the ways we get information are now beginning to shape our culture. The culture is not shaping that. I think we are being a little bit over, manipulated by that style of information getting and information sharing, and the people yelling loudest on Twitter, or the people that are finding audiences because they're complaining about the new Star Wars movies or whatever, is a strange thing that's starting to shape how people are communicating with each other, and how people are also expressing themselves. And I guess if you pretend to be, a certain way for long enough, you end up being that, and that's the danger of that. And also the extreme opinions or extreme points of view also tend to perpetuate. I don't think that's the right word. They tend to amplify themselves. So you need to have a more and more and more extreme version of whatever you said you are as proof of your commitment to the cause or your belief system. Wow, let's draw this jar lid again. And that's a really ridiculous trap to kind of get yourself into, because yeah, it's just gonna come back and get you. And it's funny because so much of these these people that are becoming popular online or popular in media, a lot of their, the groups around them and the people around them are reminding me very much of cultish like behavior. I don't think we we haven't had the kind of epidemic of cults like we did in the like late 60s, early 70s, where people were looking for other answers. But we are kind of doing that online. I think people are worshiping certain odd personalities and situations and things in a very cult-like way. I mean, I think it's funny that I guess it's Twitter and Instagram, and I mean, they're calling these people followers. I think it's pretty funny because it's oddly appropriate in a lot of situations that you're referring to these people with extreme fandom for you or extreme interest in what you're doing as your followers, because that's a lot how they operate. You see people online kind of pointing their fans at other people they don't like, or their competition, or their, whoever they're beefing with at the time, and just pestering, harassing those people, just based on the commands of their fearless leaders. But it's very strange, and I don't know what emptiness or what need to belong or whatever it is that people are feeling. But we've really began to worship these extremes, and really want people to show us how extreme, how far they can carry that, and how crazy things can get. And it's very odd. It's very counterproductive. It's creating a lot of just bad everything. But yeah, and really it's not going to be until, if ever, these systems kind of stop operating, stop worshiping the views and clicks and likes and things, and start to have their own standards or their own. I don't know. Things are still caught in this traditional ad revenue based system, which is still that's terrible, which is still very much based on this old kind of Nielsen book style of finding what's popular, although they can actually physically see a lot of people are also, that data can be crazily misrepresented and manipulated, but they can, what they feel is more accurately see the popularity of things, and so they don't understand that they're just creating. And maybe it's always been like this with any sort of, measurement of anything connected to money, but they don't realize how many people are gaming the system. And it's a very unpleasant, it just makes things unpleasant and uncomfortable, and not very conducive to any sort of, moderate, level-headed discussion, because that's not what's going to attract people. And if that's your only goal is to get clicks, you don't care if it's angry clicks or clicks of agreeance or whatever. So extreme is the best stance. Extreme is the most obvious way to get the biggest response. And I guess we've seen that, like, in radio, like the kind of shock jock radio of the 90s, and, things that just kind of escalate, where you have to keep topping yourself to maintain that audience and maintain that attention. And it's funny. Yeah, it's really funny. And when you think about that, you think about the people that made the, millions doing that sort of radio and doing that sort of style, and how they've just completely kind of backed away from it. And then also, you know, how the medium has changed to not tolerate that, like, you know, prank phone calls and certain things have, you know, the laws have changed, so it's impossible to do certain things. And so everyone has just stepped back from that because the market has kind of shifted. But I think we saw in that the tendency of all media, or the tendency of all people making things that are searching for an audience, is just extreme, extreme, extreme. Push it as far as you can. And, you know, I think pushing limits is good creatively, but that's not what we're talking about. I think we're just talking about these, you know, extreme ideas and extreme opinions that aren't even genuine. I don't think that you can even consider that. I don't know. There's just no honesty in what a lot of people are doing, because it doesn't come from anywhere other than a desire, you know, to get attention. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we are really shaped now by a generation of kids that have been in daycare since they were, you know, infants. And so we're dealing with that now. I think this drawing is getting a little extreme. So we're dealing with that now. People that have, you know, their earliest development was screaming for attention from the two staff at a nursery or a daycare that they were dumped at by their parents. So we have this new normal of, you know, how people think they socially, you know, interact, and how they get attention. And it is literally just screaming that they're hurt, you know, kind of manufacturing trauma, or manufacturing, you know, some sort of, you know, injury or attack. You know, they're being hurt by something and they need to be tended to. And so, yeah, that would be very interesting if a lot of, if you could talk to a lot of people that were really comfortable with these, you know, kind of yelling and screaming and being in this kind of extreme mode all the time, if they were daycare babies, because odds are that's a big part of the problem, is that you know, they were just dumped into a pen of babies that was, you know, screaming for attention, and that's where they learned it, and now we get to suffer from that. Yeah, it's just really odd. I just don't understand, you know, the extreme that some people want to function in. And, you know, I guess it makes sense at, you know, certain ages. We're looking at a lot of young people now with this incredible media. You know, they can very powerful ways to communicate and express themselves and document their lives and everything. And of course, what we're going to see in younger people is just confusion and outrage, and you know, like so many of the you know, titles of, you know, people's YouTube channels, or the, you know, their characters or screen names or whatever, are just angry and outrage, and, you know, just, you know, trying to express some horrible frustration. And those people get a lot of attention because I guess it's fun to watch people be upset about things. I don't know, but yeah, that is a popular genre, the genre of outrage, like people reviewing movies or people reviewing games online that hate, and they're angry, and yeah. I don't know, maybe it's just my age, not being 20 anymore. It's hard to understand why you want to live in the in anger mode constantly, or you are just looking for things to be outraged by. You know, you just can't wait to wake up in the morning and read something that's going to upset you. Yeah, it's very odd. I think, yeah, it's really hard to understand a lot of this newer thinking, because, you know, I think I can honestly say I've never been triggered. I've never, you know, read something or saw something that's been so outrageous that I've had this extreme emotional response to it. and and kind of emotional to the extent that it's just rage and uncontrollable anger or upset or whatever, just that I would just be screaming at the sky. I mean, there's nothing, there's not specific things that have ever done that. I guess there's like, days, where frustration builds up or whatever, and you get angry. I remember, having more angry outbursts being younger, but I would never call that being triggered by anything. And now that's a thing. Now that's people, they're, so emotionally delicate or so able to be affected by things around them. I don't know, you call it like, there's all kinds of things, stupid things that people are calling this recently, but it's just an odd thin skinnedness and a some kind of right, something people think they deserve not to be upset, and it's just odd. And all of this is just nonsense because we're getting this, these silly examples at universities and things, and a lot of the things that media, and especially clickbait, attention-seeking media, is focusing on is probably, tiny little percentages of incidents of things, but yet we're starting to depict, things in those terms. We're starting to like create these weird stereotypes of people with certain opinions or certain situations that, are for the most part manufactured. But, I guess that's always been media's role, ever since they put a black face on every violent crime on the evening news. They've always been doing that kind of this manipulating opinion and creating these stereotypes and things that just people function by. Yeah, and so I thought it would be a time of that, with the access to so many opinions and with so many people out there, that we would see the diversity of opinion and the diversity of lifestyle and the diversity of approach to the world, because there's now so many millions of people with such unique and different ways that their lives and their opinions are shaped, and that would be interesting, and it would be broadening. It would broaden people's minds, but instead it has done nothing but close up people's opinions and kind of shore up people into this or that or black and white, and not seeing kind of the variation or the variety of opinion, and how you could get to that in the world, and that should be interesting, but obviously it's not. So when I was in school taking an interactive media class, that's the kind of thing I used to do. I don't know why I would ever do something like that, but my instructor was saying, was just asking me, because it was kind of the 98, maybe 97, 98, asking me about what I thought about the increase of communication and interaction that the internet was causing. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It was going to have a positive effect or a negative effect. And I guess being young and kind of more optimistic, I said, well, obviously it's going to have a positive effect, because we're going to be exposed to a huge variety of opinions and information that we've never had access to before. Because if your information is only the newspaper, the nightly news, magazines, and the people in your immediate vicinity, it's all pretty much going to be a closed environment. And he said, well, I think the popular opinion as of right now is that that's not true, and it is actually going to be a very negative. It is actually going to have a very negative effect on people, and people will become more extreme in their opinions, and they will be more closed off, and the world, to a lot of people, will just become a much scarier place. And for me, that was, especially at that age, that was so interesting. And I guess I still have a little bit. I mean, I'm a lot, a lot more world weary, and but still, want that to be true. Want the the idea that exposure to diverse opinion is a great thing, because it helps you to kind of refine your choices and your decisions and feel either good or bad about the choices you've made and how you want to live your life, instead of just drawing things into these extreme opinions, and just people are afraid to not be affiliated. That's a weird thing. And people choosing not to be part of something, not to identify themselves as SJW or alt-right or whatever, that now if you're not with us, you're the enemy kind of thinking. Where the heck did that come from? I'm using heck. Isn't that lovely? I'm trying to keep it all ages, nice and friendly. I don't know, nothing I talk about, I don't even know why I pretend to do that, because nothing I talk about is that interesting to anybody under old. Anybody less than old and aged is not going to find anything I'm talking about interesting, just sad and confusing. So it's really disappointing. I mean, we've resorted, the way public response works, and I am mostly just talking about the nonsense of Twitter and social media, and but these are the things that media companies and corporations and things are reacting to now, is social media response. It's crazy. It's really, really crazy. But I think I'm just talking about that, about people having to be extreme, and I guess because it's just becoming very tribal. I think it would be the same situation that kind of that the post-apocalyptic situation where all society breaks down, all systems and services and everything are gone, and so either you try to survive on your own, protecting yourself from everybody else out there, or you affiliate with some tribe, and then you have them, you get kind of this like gang warfare kind of mentality. Then you have them to back you, because then you've got a much better chance of survival, even though you're not living very honestly and very true to yourself, and you're probably doing things that you disagree with very, very much, as far as violence, or against your beliefs, or whatever, or you're being subjugated and kind of manipulated and abused or exploited by the group that's supposedly offering you your protection. So I don't know, we're in a really weird kind of Jerry Springer audience type reaction to everything. People's reactions are way over the top, and I don't know. I think it's in an odd way because we've become so tolerant to people's expressions of their kind of mental disorders and their weird hang-ups and their weird manipulations. We've become really tolerant of allowing people, like, under the guise of accepting people's opinions, we're just letting people misbehave. I don't know. That's kind of not a good term for it, but just letting people be very destructive and be very angry and harmful for the sake of not upsetting anybody, nobody's getting hurt, nobody's nobody's feeling uncomfortable or ignored. I don't know. It's very, very strange. So I think creatively it's dangerous. And so I would consider, like, things I've talked about before, like fandoms and things, are basically that same gang mentality, that same tribalism that, I want to be popular as an artist, so I'm going to join this fandom tribe and give them what they want, and hopefully that will give me the love that I want, the popularity that I want, so that sort of thing. It's ridiculously destructive, and I guess it's just another one of those ugly parts of human nature that we're faced with now. We created this system, and all it's doing is is, you know, showing us more of that. And yeah, so we get exactly what we deserve as far as oh, come on. We get exactly what we deserve as far as these things, you know, being punished in this abusive situation where people are, you know, no more than acting on these on this weird tribal basis, because, you know, so much of it is about you know, power and control, and you know, having some you know, sort of strength in a situation, you know, creating some sort of safety or some sort of yeah, I don't know. It's just, it's so tribal and so sad that we have to think like this. Oh, right, banana muffin. Let's do that. It's so sad that that we've come to this instead of being rational, logical people that are using their best gifts of reason and empathy and those sorts of things to communicate with the world and to interact with other people. Because that's what I think, because I recently had you know, little kind of arguments with people, or just, you know, little discussions with people about you know, socialism and things like that. And I think that recently that's become very popular because there's kind of these democratic socialist candidates and stuff that are showing up. And you know, and when you talk about the flaws of liberal and conservative views in America, a lot of people's answer to that is, well, socialism. And I don't want this to be political, because I'm not political, and I'm not going to be able to have very, I mean, they're just very personal, not well researched, or, you know, just my reasons and my prejudices and whatever are all included in this. But the thing, I think the weakness of socialism is so many people recently are expressing it, you know, socialism with a human heart, with, you know, care and concern for people. And that's not how governments work, and that's not how systems work, and people tend away from that. I think if you create a system where you're, you know, portioning money out to people, or protection, or, you know, land or whatever, heart and love is never part of that equation, and it can't be. And I think for socialism to be effective, it has to be. So where are we then, you know, with a system with an extreme missing ingredient that is not going to yeah, I think it's just and unfortunately that's a huge reason why capitalism is so effective, is because it tends towards human nature and the worst parts of human nature, and greed and competition and overcoming, you know, someone else, like, you know, succeeding at the expense of other people, and or you know, manipulation of people for your own gain, you know, these sorts of things, which are very ugly. And everybody that has, you know, criticisms of that system are completely right, because it's the ugliest parts of people that we see. You know, that system kind of tending toward. But the answer is not a mommy and daddy government that will love and protect us and always look out for us, and because that doesn't exist. It doesn't happen. It has never happened in the history of the world. So why do we think it's going to suddenly be an option an option for us today? Yeah, I think that's something that human beings are really bad at. They're good at saying what they don't like, but they're bad at offering a reasoned alternative, and not an emotional or you know, an alternative just based on their prejudices and based on their negative experiences. Oh, I don't know what's happening with all of these little bottles and things. I don't think those are very interesting. But yeah, so I'm going to get off of that, because, you know, political discussion is so uninteresting. But, you know, when I was thinking of extremes, that's what I was thinking of is, you know, a lot of the things that were offered most recently are political extremes. And, you know, America's current president is an example of that, you know, and, you know, when something is a reaction to something else, it tends to the extreme. And I don't think people understand how ridiculous and destructive that is. And so we're just in this time, and, you know, and the dishonesty, because, you know, these systems, we're still, you know, whether we disagree with it or not, we're still in a, you know, capitalist culture. And so people benefit very much from your, you know, from your hangups, if they can manipulate you and kind of disengage your brain and just engage your emotions and get you to, you know, buy something or, you know, whatever, join something or do something based on that emotion. That's exactly, I mean, capitalism has always been great at doing that. And the kind of, you know, media supporting it have always been amazing at making people irrational and do irrational things and decisions. And that's what we're seeing right now on a, on a larger scale. But at the same time, I mean, it would be very interesting. I mean, it's not in people's, this is just like anything else. Like when you talk about political change and everything, it's not in politicians' best interest to make any changes because they're benefiting the most from that system that they're participating in. So why would people on the internet actually talk about what a small population of people of the world are on the internet and how unimportant and disconnected, you know, their opinions and their experiences are? Yeah, but extremes, I think it's just not a healthy thing. And I think to be creative, you need to be stronger than that, because I think wanting to label yourself, wanting to participate in some sort of group thinking or group identity is weak. It's always been weakness. And of course, I'm saying it's based on mental weakness, but the mechanism itself obviously is strong, because that's why people tend towards it, because it means safety and it means protection. So people tend towards that thing, but it is always based on mental, emotional, possibly physical weakness. So avoid it at all possible and die, you know, defending your own individual personal values and nothing that someone else has, you know, fed to you. Because that's ridiculous. And I'm not meaning physically die. I mean, you know, lose an argument or a discussion or something, you know, based on your own decisions and your own ignorance, your own lack of information, not someone else's. I mean, I think that is the saddest kind of product of all of this, is you have people, you know, with these strong adopted opinions that are hurting themselves or their life or their livelihoods or whatever, kind of blindly espousing these things and not really understanding them, because they never kind of came to this thought themselves. And yeah, that's just really sad to see. I think that's the worst thing that's come out of this kind of thinking, is that, hey, let's not do that. Is that, you know, people are suffering and making foolish decisions based on things they don't even really understand. But that's always how it's been. You know, that's every soldier that's had to, you know, give his life on a battlefield, I don't think completely understood their country's motivations for putting them out there in the first place. And that's very painful. But, you know, that's how it's always been. So we need to, make some much deeper changes before anything like that is going away. Okay, I'm already coloring things. Look at me. Try to come up with some gorgeous, glamorous bottles and combinations. So I don't know if that is particularly useful, but I think it's an important thing to think about, because even if we're going to be stuck in this age for a while longer, I think you'll do nothing but benefit yourself by having an independent, always having independent thinking. And even if it doesn't make you popular or get you a better job or whatever, I think it's always the best way to go. It's all that kind of be true to yourself and that kind of thinking, that kind of stuff. But I think that's always been and always will be true, is avoid affiliating yourself or associating yourself with people and things and ideas that you don't really understand, just because it seems like a good idea at the time, or it brings you some popularity or some, what am I doing wrong now? You think there's some benefit to it. Oh, I gotta go down. But yeah, that's always I guess that's always the temptation. That's always been the risk forever. We see in history so much of that cowardice, and in a lot of situations it's not actually true cowardice. It's actually just protecting your family, or being in a situation where you can't lose your livelihood, you can't lose your means of supporting your family or whatever, so you just kind of surrender to whatever the controlling opinion is. But yeah, it's really difficult. It's a difficult thing, and I think as creatives, because what we're doing, I think can be I'm not going to include myself in anything that noble, but what we can do is culturally very important, I think, as far as how important it is on an individual level, or a larger societal level, is not to shouldn't be overestimated. Mostly because it's constantly eternally co-opted. That's basically fine art is where rich people hide their money, so why would you want to be part of that? I don't know. Yeah, that's a very very depressing thought, is all those young hopeful art school students are just going to be tax shelters for the extremely wealthy, and probably never in any way participate in any of that wealth during their lifetime. But enough of that. Yeah, I think it's important. I think it's always important to be questioning yourself, and people, the world and the diversity of the world should give you a lot of opportunity to question yourself and kind of really start to feel more and more confident about your opinions and how you arrived at them and those sorts of things. But then at the same time, people are always uncomfortable about self-examination and feeling lost. So I think, and that's where a lot of that comes from, where a lot of that hiding behind popular ideas or popular labels comes from. And a lot of people do want to do that because it means, because of the safety and protection that it means, and also the benefits of and especially currently the benefits that popularity brings, which are usually financial. But yeah, it's just good to be aware. What's going on, keyboards? It's just good to be aware of those sorts of things, and to try to be as honest with yourself about it and about your decisions. Maybe a little gold on this label, a little more gold. Oh, all right. Well, I hope that's at least a little something to think about and a little interesting, because, yeah, creative, trying to come up with some, kind of satisfying or at least a little bit kind of compelling creative topics, so that, just in your life or your own work, it gives you a little something to consider. Because, yeah, I don't think people are considering as much recently. But yeah, so many years ago, I was told this was all going to go horribly wrong by my interactive media instructor, and I ignored I ignored everything. But he knew, and I think a lot of the people that were thinking very much, because he had already been doing interactive art and digital only art for a while, and a lot of the people that were really involved in thinking about the technology and thinking about its effects and thinking about it as a medium for expression and making art had already realized that nothing good is going to come of this. The same way that they said that Steve Jobs warned Zuckerberg, don't go into the collecting personal data thing. It's only going to bring you heartache. The same way that he was warned and ignored it, and now has done to the world what he has done. Thank you so very much. But yeah, that brings up kind of an interesting point, that we only hear things when we're ready to hear them. Oh, that's the wrong one. And I think that's a lot of that is what I mean by that is more based on, I guess, age and experience. So people can tell you, what's important, what to watch out for, how to live your life. Know how to think about things from their experience, what to look out for. And if you're not ready, if you're not ready to hear that, you're not going to hear it. And that is that's dangerous, and you had warning, but still you gotta figure it out for yourself and make those mistakes, which is funny that people are like that and have always been. Mushy banana. Trying to draw here. That bruised, mushy look. There we go. Yeah, my breathing on the mic. Yeah, so still, I don't even know about any of the streaming stuff. I think I'll give you guys a year of this, and then at that time we'll kind of take a look at it and reconsider, because I've mostly been using this to keep my cartoons on schedule, and kind of give me motivation to draw and be doing this at a regular time every week. But I think after a year of talking to myself, I should definitely reconsider what I'm doing and why, and figure out if there's better ways to spend my energy doing this, because I think there are so many people now involved in talking to creative people and whatever, and there's a lot of people that just want to talk garbage techniques and stuff. I remember what school was that? So I went to fine arts schools, but there was it's like a state university. I forget if it was like USC or whatever, where I went to just a figure drawing studio that was open to outside people, and I was there and just talking to the instructor and, talking about where I went to school and everything. And immediately the whole session was just based on, well, what technique do you use? Do you use the Jordanson technique, or do you use the, Fabrizio, like all this like nonsense? It was just like, art geek talk. I don't know. It was so bizarre. And I had never, learned or, been taught or even thought to approach art in that odd way, where we're talking about it like I don't know, like playing chess or something. What classic historical strategies are you using when you approach the canvas or whatever? That was odd. That was really odd. So what technique is your what do your instructors teach you? And it was odd. It just reminds me of those stupid scenes in comic books or kind of pulp, where they're always like, you've learned that from your this whatever technique. Obviously I can see you've studied under so and so. That was so bizarre, and I didn't realize there was like an art school geek thing that existed. But I guess like geeky culture stuff has permeated everything, but that was so bizarre for me to be approached like that and asked what my affiliations were. But, then again, that's almost the same, back to a similar point that what kind of artist you are is based on your technique. Based on your technique. Oh, but yeah, we'll see. Nonsense and more nonsense. Yeah, something is wrong with all of my technology recently. Sorry. I can't believe how invasive all of this stuff is. All right, sorry about that. Uncensored. Yeah, that's just exhausting. People are just exhausting. I guess I've just got to stop working for mental patients, I think, is the takeaway from that. It's goddamn exhausting. But that totally derailed me. Oh yeah, just going to that drawing studio. Oof. Yeah, so that's all nonsense, and it's just to make yourself feel better, like you're actually learning something. So don't do that. Yeah, very silly. Yeah, because I think unless you're, it's medicine or science or law, a big part of the experience of going to university is connecting to other people with similar interests that are going to enter similar industries, and then you kind of staying in touch, helping each other, and just kind of having connections once people get into those industries. That's all it is. That's all it's about. And to get so ridiculous with it, and it's kind of yeah, just that was so odd for me. I just don't know why it's got to be like that. Okay, so there we go. So for you, no convenience store segment this week. I've not had any ideas about what to do with that. What are we at time-wise? Oh, sorry. Oh, almost an hour. Oh, boy. So no convenience store segment for you. just a bunch of mad rambling about extremes. Extreme rambling about extremes. So, yeah, I'm going to try to rethink that segment and come up with some better ideas and maybe some new graphics and sound. And so I will treat you to that some other time, but not this week. There's just nothing but hot this week. So yeah, so if you are terribly missing that part, if that's what was interesting to you, well, then let me know and I'll get back on that as soon as possible. But for the most part, I think I'm going to focus on drawing these cartoons. So we have a banana muffin, which I should maybe brown the top of. I don't know. Oh, what's going on now? Where am I? There we go. Okay, so, oh, maybe I should actually put something on here. And I can, yeah, something. I'll make it a little bit more transparent. Oh, don't do that. Okay, there we go. Okay. So our two amazing ideas this week are about royal jelly. Maybe oh, not that one. Multiply the jelly layer. Ah, damn. So where did it go? What did I do here? Okay, no. The jelly layer. Make that stand out a little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit better. And I guess I should put a shadow on that because it's looking strange. Just have it sit on top a little bit more. Yeah, something like that. Yikes. Okay. So there we go. So our two cartoons for this week are royal jelly and banana banana nut muffins. Okay. Okay. So this idea was it was the intermediate stage of making becoming a banana muffin that he didn't like. That Hugh that he, I think, found unpleasant might be that he found unpleasant. Something like that. That might give us a nice overly wordy sentence. It was the intermediate stage of becoming a banana nut muffin that he found unpleasant. The larval stage. Let's find out. Sorry, I'm going to find out how badly I misspelled intermediate. Sorry. Whoa, spell checking live on the air. There we go. It was the intermediate stage of becoming a banana muffin that he found unpleasant. Okay. So the mushy banana part. Oh, maybe a banana nut muffin, because I drew little nuts on there, didn't I? Okay. It was the intermediate stage of becoming a banana nut muffin that he found unpleasant. All right. And so royal jelly. Ugh. So he didn't understand what royal jelly was, but was pretty unsure he should be doing it this way. Okay. Let's see here. Yeah, so okay. Royal jelly. He wasn't sure what royal jelly was, but this seemed to be incorrect usage. Sorry, I think I'm sitting off of the edge of this frame here. Let's see. So he wasn't sure what royal jelly was. This seemed to be an inappropriate use of royal jelly. Yeah, something along those lines. This seemed to him a very inappropriate use of royal jelly. I wonder if that's a kind of a trademarked name, if I should be capitalizing that. I don't think so. This seemed to him a very inappropriate use. A very inappropriate use of royal jelly. All right. That sounds kind of like a familiar joke. Come on, you stupid thing. Come on, little signature. Okay, this seemed to him a very inappropriate use of royal jelly, period. And it was the intermediate stage of becoming a banana nut muffin that he found unpleasant. Wow. All right, well, that's that. I hope you enjoyed that process and that complaining and ranting and raving, and keep your opinions reasonable and rational and emotional, but not overly emotional. Yeah, I think it's, just be aware of extremes and how you are being manipulated to think certain ways, and be afraid and hide behind labels and extreme opinions and fandoms and things like that to kind of protect yourself, because I think people are social and, naturally tribal and want to kind of connect together and, communicate and interact, but not at the sake of, excluding or punishing or hurting other people. I think that's ridiculous that we're to that point. Anyhow, enough. So thank you for joining me this week. If you would like to see more of domestic abuse, this comic, please go to abusecartoons.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Abusecartoons. And if you would like to if you would like to support this cartoon and see more of it and have more access to it and get things like original art that still exists on paper and a copy of this book signed, which is a collection of the first 1,000 cartoons, please consider supporting me on Patreon at patreon.com/abusecartoons. And as usual, I will be back next week, and with or without a convenience store segment. We'll find out about that next week. But thank you for watching, and please be interested in what you're doing and what you're thinking. And I will see you next week. Goodbye.